Hi, everyone. It is Giovanna, and I have a special guest here this morning. If you're new here, I support women in demanding roles and overcoming stress and burnout by pausing for self care anchored by boundaries. And today we are going to have someone I've had on today or had on before, Dr. Kimani, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself.
Thank you, Giovanna. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Kimani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, a toxic job survivor, but more importantly, I like to say I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. I'm also the co-creator with Marissa Price of the Job Liberation Virtual Summit, which teaches Black women different ways to exit out of a toxic job in terms of replacing income, what to do about the health insurance, life insurance, retirement, all those things. So provide that resource so that Black women are able to pivot and leave toxic jobs and do well.
Okay. And so we've talked about toxic jobs, but for people who aren't sure, can you talk about what is a toxic job for us? Because many of us have demanding roles, and so some
Mhm.
roles may be tough. What's the difference
Mhm.
between your job just being a tough, demanding job and your
Mhm.
job being toxic?
Yeah. So I think that the telltale signs are when you start perceiving that your job is harming you physically and or psychologically. So it can look different for different people, but when you start recognizing I'm not feeling respected at my job. I'm working really hard, I'm working extra hard, I'm going up and above, but I'm not being respected. I'm being undermined at my job. People are talking about me behind my back. I don't feel any psychological safety at my job, and just feeling like you don't really have a sense of opportunities for growth at your job, and you feel attacked. You feel like you're always like on guard because you are being attacked, and so you're always kind of looking around. That's a indicator of a toxic job, and you many times can observe what's happening to other people at your job, and you can see the abuse happening to them, and eventually it come back to you too because the system is a toxic system.
Okay, so the system is a toxic system. And
Hmm.
so, in your experience, how long does it take someone to really leave that situation, or are there like stages to it? Because a lot of people think or know that they're in a toxic job, they're
Right.
experiencing things, but
Yes.
when do they leave?
Wow, that's a really good question because it ranges. Some Black women have been like, you know what? I started a new job. The first day I never went back. Okay, that's some Black women. Other Black women are in the job and then they start becoming really dedicated to the work because they usually apply because they were dedicated to the work in some way or they had some visions for the job. So they try to like make excuses like, oh, it's not that bad, or maybe I'll do this, or maybe I'll do that, and so it might make the process longer because you're not really being honest with yourself about how the job is really impacting you. So it just depends. Some people are like, this is not what I signed up for. I'm out. But other people are staying many, many years because they're caught up in this, oh no, it's not that bad, or I'm not going to let them run me out of here, or I'm going to fight them. And so then you stay longer, even though you know the job is toxic, but then you delude yourself in thinking that it's not that bad, or you're going to be okay,
Mhm.
or that you're not going to let them win at running you out this good job.
So the what you just said made me think about people who are in helping fields,
Hmm.
educators, social workers, nurses, and a lot of
Hmm.
times I have found
Hmm.
that people will be in toxic situations, but
Hmm.
because they are in a helping field, they
Hmm.
feel guilty about
Yep.
leaving. Because what about the
Yes.
kids, or what about the patients, or what about the
Yes.
what do you say in those situations?
Yes, because that was me. So I think, it's challenging because, yes, we do come into the field because we want to help and heal other people. But it gets to a point where you have to recognize that self-preservation comes before anything else. And you really can't help anybody if you're not well. And so it's coming to the understanding and that you are still able to carry out that mission, but maybe not at that job. You can
Mhm.
still, be an educator. You could still be a nurse or a psychologist or whatever, but maybe not at the place that's harming you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, is that you can do your job elsewhere and you don't have to
Yeah.
stay in that particular place
No.
as well. Yes, and hi Marissa,
Hey,
said your
Marissa.
wellness must come first. And that's
True.
true. We do that all the time. You have to put your own mask on first. You
Mm-hmm.
can't pour from an empty well. And especially
True.
for those of us in those helping fields or parents, you have to be well before you can help those people that you want to help, for sure. So we have a presidential election coming up and possible
Mm.
changes to the political climate
Mm.
one way or the other.
Woo.
And so, yeah, and so a lot of people are, uncertain about job security. So do you think
Mm-hmm.
that the election should influence someone's decision to leave a toxic job? And
Mm.
how do you think about that?
I don't think that, because life keeps going on, and no matter what, you're still going to have to work. So still think about what is best for you. Now, the climate may change in different ways, but that's why I say to Black women, we need to plan. We need to plan. So the master classes that we're offering, it's an opportunity to plan for leaving, not that you're just up, oh, November 1st, I'm out of here. No, unless you're experiencing immediate danger physically and or psychologically. So even if the climate does change, we will talk about skills that you will have. So no matter what the outcome of the election is, you still have things in place so that you can start exit planning. What does the exit plan look like? What do you need to do? How do you get those things in order? We will be talking about that so you can plan. So don't let that keep you, because we're talking about planning. We're not saying just go up and go, and then election happens, you can be like, oh no, they told me to go. No, no,
Right.
no.
Yeah. And so I'm glad you said that, because we want to talk about your masterclass coming up, and
Yeah.
it's a two-parter.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about what people can expect on this first day.
Yes. And I want to say too that Marissa Price and I are doing the master classes together. And you can go to one or both of the master classes. Okay. So the first one is October 20th. So this Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern time. It is how to leave a toxic job masterclass. And it's for Black women. It is to help you learn the skills that you need. What are the steps to creating an exit plan, to pivot to another career or another job? What do you need for that? And what do you need to sustain yourself emotionally as you're making that pivot? Okay. So that's October 20th. These master classes that I'm telling you about, they are all webinar format. So your name will not be listed and you will not be on camera. The only people who will be on camera will be the speakers. And I say that because as Black women, we need to be cautious of who is in our business. And so no one will know. No one will know you trying to leave your job or trying to prepare to leave your job. Okay. So that's October 20th. And October 27th is how to heal after leaving a toxic job. So again, that's 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern time. So when you leave a toxic job, there's often a grief process that we don't really have space for. We don't give space for, because we're on to the next job, we're on to the next thing. But when we don't heal from the job, when we don't go through the grief process, there's a danger that we could end up in another job that's toxic,
Mhm.
and or a job that's even worse than what we came from. And so we don't want to carry that garbage, that residual stuff from the old job to a new job or a new business opportunity. And so it really allows the opportunity to really start the healing journey by going through the grief process.
Yeah, it reminds me, when you were talking just now, of when you leave a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm,
You've got to
mm-hmm.
do some work, you've got to do some planning, or else you
Yeah.
end up right back in the same type
It's the
of
same
relationship.
partner, different name, right?
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. And so at that second masterclass,
Mm-hmm,
you're going to be talking about how to heal after you've
mm-hmm,
left the toxic job. I want to
mm-hmm.
hear your opinion about, part of that healing process is influenced by the people in your circle.
Oh, yes.
And so if you have friends or family members who don't understand why you want to leave your good job,
Those good benefits.
good benefits, you're making a good salary. What can you say to those people?
First, when people are saying things to you that are not to your benefit. So if anybody is telling you to stay in an environment, a relationship, a job, anything to tell you to stay somewhere where you're being harmed, you need to think about what information you share with them, okay? Because your priority is you and your safety and your well-being. If you are a mother, you need to think about if you do not do that, it's going to impact your child or your children as well. So you have to think about, okay, they're telling me to stay somewhere that's harming me. I do not need to be telling them my business. Okay. I don't need to tell them that. So be mindful of what you share with people. So if you get negative feedback from people or they're telling you to stay somewhere where you're being harmed, don't talk to them about your job anymore. Okay. Talk about other things. You can just say, I don't want to talk about that with you. Or it comes up and you just start changing the subject and you start finding people around you who do support you and who do not project their fears onto you. And part of that might be finding community in our master classes because there are other Black women in similar situations who are there to support you. You do not need people projecting things onto you or make you feel guilty about decisions you need to do. You are living your life. So you have to make decisions that are best for you and your family.
And so for somebody who is, wanting some more clarity before making a move, what are some types of exercises or reflections they can do to ensure that they are making the best decision for themselves and their family?
Mm-hmm. So I think what's important first is to pause and just sit with yourself and just sit in silence and just listen to what your soul is saying to you. Your soul does not lie. Is your soul saying to you, I hate this place. I hate my life. Okay. So what is it about my life that I hate? And start interrogating that. Another thing that might be very, very helpful is to get into therapy because that can help you kind of sort out what's going on, help you reality test about what's happening, but also help you evaluate all the elements in your life and what are some changes that need to happen and at what rate, right? What's the priority? So do you want to address certain things at certain times? But what's the priority in terms of making changes in your life? And then also looking at, do I need to get coaches? Do I need to have other people in my life who can support me as I'm on this journey of pivoting?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'm glad that you mentioned a pause. I'd like to take a moment for people who are looking for a way to intentionally pause, to go into the description and sign up for the Hiatus Space newsletter. I have cultivated a space for people who are interested in taking that intentional pause using meditation, using yoga, using some mindful coaching to put down some boundaries so that they can really take care of themselves. So I hope that you guys will check that out. And also, if you're finding this conversation helpful, then please give it a like, give it a share, subscribe. It helps the channel, and I really appreciate it. So, Dr. Kimani, another thing that I would like to ask you is that how can somebody start to rebuild their sense of self-worth? Because I have found that when people leave their jobs, they make a big change. Maybe they're excited in the beginning, but there may come a part or a time where they feel like maybe they have failed. Maybe they are struggling with confidence because maybe if they had been, better at this or that, then this wouldn't have happened. What can you say to those people?
Yeah, so that's part of the grief process that I talked about before, because when you think about, the healing from a toxic job, that really happens after you leave. So initially you might have that sense of elation, like, oh, I'm so glad I'm out of here. But then, like you're saying, this other stuff starts coming up and it might be very confusing. Like, why do I feel this way? Or why am I going through this self-doubt? Why is this happening? Because you haven't processed the grief about leaving the job. Part of the grief is also dealing with self-forgiveness and knowing that there were certain things that happened at the job. Maybe didn't do what you wanted to do in certain ways, or maybe you made decisions in certain ways, but you have to remember you made decisions at the time, or you behaved in the time that was best given what you were going through. So how do you show yourself some grace and that self-forgiveness? So I would say it really involves really immersing yourself in that grief process. And again, we're talking about that during the masterclass October 27th. And also in therapy can be very helpful to talk about the grief process and self-forgiveness. It's an ongoing process. I still have moments of, going back and forth with the self-forgiveness, and I've resigned over 2 years ago.
Yeah. So do you have a story that you could share to just kind of illustrate, how things are on the one side of the toxic job when you're in it versus how your life can change for the better once you leave that toxic job?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So, and I just want to say too that when we think about toxic jobs, most times it's not all bad. Like
Mhm.
my job wasn't all bad at the beginning. I loved my job for many years. I was there for about 13 years. I loved it at the very beginning. And I think that's what's so devastating is that it turned into a nightmare. It was a dream turned into a nightmare. And so when it started turning into a nightmare, that's when I started experiencing the physical and psychological symptoms. Like this job is harming me. And it just got to the point where every day I would wake up in dread. Like I couldn't get out the bed. Like it took me a long time to even get out the bed. Right. And so I think about that experience compared to, and then Sundays, it was like the whole, like just consumed with dread, right? It wasn't just wait, it was like consumed with dread. And then 5 p.m. on Sunday, that was just like my time, like, oh my gosh, I gotta go back to that job on Monday. So now what I've done is now 5 p.m. Pacific time on Sundays, I do a Sunday live on my YouTube channel, Lifting Us with Climb Consulting Wellness Services, where I talk about Black women healing from toxic jobs, where either I interview another Black woman, I'm talking about other issues to support Black women, but that's my healing, right? So I went from dreading to like, I'm fired up 5 o'clock, on Sundays now. Very different. And, as opposed to waking up in dread, I no longer wake up in dread. Sundays are great days for me. I spend time in my garden, I spend time with my dogs, my family. So that doesn't happen. And we got pets during the pandemic. And we got my first dog, Scooby. And then, like shortly, I think maybe after I resigned, we got his sister named Joy because I wanted to wake up to joy every day. And that's exactly what I do. So I went from dread to joy every day. It's like night and day. My life is just very different compared to what it used to be.
Oh, that is amazing. And I love how, you doing your lives is part of your healing process,
Yeah,
but you
it
are
sure
helping
is.
so many other people
Yes,
heal. You are
yes.
making such an impact with Black women who are deciding to, take off the cape, who are deciding that they don't have to be martyrs at their job, that they can take care of themselves. So you're doing very important work. So
Yes,
as
thank
we
you.
come to close to the end of our conversation, can you talk about for somebody who's feeling stuck in a toxic
Mhm,
job, that they're
mhm,
afraid, they're scared to
mhm,
make the leap? What's
mhm,
one thing that you want them to take away
mhm,
from our conversation, or one thing that you
mhm,
want to say to them to encourage
mhm.
them to make a change?
Yes, I want to say that the fear is normal. It is part of the process. I went through it as well. And I invite you to think about the fear does not mean stop in your tracks and let these things continue to happen to you. I invite you to think about, okay, the fear is normal. What do I need to do to help me walk through the fear? What resources do I need to connect to that will help me walk through the fear? If it's therapy, if it's master classes, if it's being around supportive people, what is that? But I want you to know that the fear is normal. And I also want you to know that you're not alone in having this experience. And there's many of us out here who are here to support you and know that you have resources and you have options.
Yes, yes. Thank you for saying that. And, going back to your point about how your job can be good and also bad, Marissa
Yeah,
said that's important. Multiple things can be true at the
true,
same time.
true.
So again, I want to invite everyone to make sure that you sign up. The link will be in the description for either or both, because it is a process. You
Mm-hmm,
leave the
mm-hmm.
toxic job, and then there will be unexpected feelings that come up for which you'll need
Yeah.
support in healing. So sign up for both of those master classes if you are in a toxic job and you are looking to make a change. Okay.
Mm-hmm,
And so
mm-hmm.
I want to thank Dr. Kimani again for coming on the channel and
Thank you,
sharing her
Giovanna.
wisdom with everyone. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And I will see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.